This hangout's on the air. Hey, welcome, folks. This is Colonel Stan Scrabbit, and I am the Northeast Region Recruiting and Retention Officer. In addition, I am the Rocky Mountain Region Chief of Staff and the National E-Learning Coordinator, trying to wear multiple hats, but yeah, a little busy. And with me, I have the National Recruiting and Retention Manager and Colonel Darren Ninnis. Darren, say hello.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing this evening? Glad to have everybody here.
All right. Hey, let's talk about rules of engagement real quick. And basically, how this works is we are going to get a presentation. And you guys get to kind of kick back and watch this presentation. But you can also ask questions. So up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. And if you want to ask a question, you can do it there. We are also on Twitter. So if you want to ask a question with Twitter, we're managing that also using the hashtag CAP Recruiting. And we will try to answer your questions. Colonel Ninnis is going to be kind of keeping me on track here. Let's see, what else? Yeah, if you want to just let us know that you're in the session, there is a little chat function on the page that you're watching this from. And if you just go ahead and enter your name, that would be great. And, you know, who knows, you may get a prize. I doubt it, but you may. You never know. So let's see. We have a first question. So Colonel Ninnis, if you can ask that or answer that question, I'd be grateful.
Okay, Andrew asked, will a roster for this webinar be available for proof of attendance with specialty track requirements? Hopefully we'd be able to get a roster of everybody that attends, but the big thing is that this presentation is available afterwards too. So it's kind of hard to track exactly who watched the webinar live and who watched the webinar afterwards. I would say if you're needing that kind of thing for specialty track certification kind of purposes, you should just indicate, you know, watch the January 2015 national webinar. That would probably be kind of on your honor, if you will. So there's our answer, I hope.
All right, very good. Well, anyways, you are here to kind of see how we are doing this, how we ran a recruiting and retention program, some ideas to keep members in your unit. And so without further ado, we'll just get to that point. All right, Colonel Ninnis, am I showing my presentation?
Not yet, sir. Unfortunately, I see you.
Well, hold on. Let me share that just a little better. Let me just share it. How's that?
Good job.
All right, very good. All right, so you should see it now.
You are live.
Very good. Thank you. So this presentation is on how to keep your membership, how to get and keep your membership. Down in the lower right, this is how you can get a hold of me. Scrabbit at ner or .ner.rr@gmail.com. Or you can get me on Twitter at NER Recruiting. Once again, we are following the hashtag CAP Recruiting, so please send a message. And this is the squadron that I had back in Laramie, Wyoming. Wonderful group of people. Put a shout out to them. Go Laramie. Civil Air Patrol basically turns over its membership, roughly 60,000 members every 3 years. So in my mind, we're doing a great job in recruiting and we're kind of struggling in retention. So that's why we're going to talk about both pieces here. You are in a leadership role, whether you are a staff member, recruiting and retention, or a commander, or just a member that maybe even just joined. You have a leadership role, and this is one of the areas that we kind of fall down in Civil Air Patrol and is causing members to leave our units. So something to definitely think about. But in your leadership role, we should also be looking for opportunities to bring in new members and mentor them up within our program. You may be in the position that you are getting members in the door, right? We're doing, I think, a pretty good job of recruiting, but also having a hard time in keeping them. And you want to create a successful recruiting campaign, as well as create a good retention program where we are keeping members and getting them to stay in our program. So this is what we had done, and I guess a little bit of background, to say we and how this is done. I have been a squadron commander at 3 separate units. A unit in Turkey, a unit in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and a unit in Laramie, Wyoming. In Cheyenne and Laramie, I had tripped upon this process, which actually Colonel Ninnis had written and had used. And that process, by using that process, I easily tripled my membership. When I did not use this process, we did not have members coming in the door. So I am a strong advocate of what I'm about to tell you. And when I'm working with a unit, if you follow these instructions, it's kind of like a recipe. If you follow the recipe fully, you should get the meal that you want. And the same thing here. If you follow this process completely, you should be able to have a successful open house, where we were dragging in 40 to 50 people at each of our open houses. So let's walk through this process. So like any good process, this requires planning and preparation, and then finally good execution. So let's talk about the planning and the execution at that level. 31 to 90 days out, there's a list of things that you should be working on. The first of those is you need to get on your calendar so everybody in your unit knows when you are going to have your recruiting open house. You need to get it on the calendar. When in Laramie, we had 3 open houses each year. They were put on the calendar at the beginning of the year when we set out the original calendar, and we held to those dates, and they should just consider it carved in stone. Ideally, you want to hold it on a meeting night. That way people already are used to showing up. So you have people that are from your unit that are showing up, and it's a great opportunity to show them the facilities you're going to be working in, and also start getting them into the mix. At this 31 to 90 day window, you need to basically get materials printed. Either you're going to order them from National, and National doesn't have the budget it used to have in materials, so it's kind of hit and miss on whether or not you're going to get materials from National. But if you are going to try to get materials from National, you need to order them well ahead of time. You can't just do it a couple days in advance and expect that they'll be there. So you don't want to be held to that. Or print your own. So Colonel Ninnis is putting together a resource list of brochures and presentations and posters and all kinds of great materials that you can go and download and bring it to your local printer. The reality is you're going to spend a couple dollars, unless you can have that business donate it and write it off as a tax, something for their taxes that they donated to a volunteer organization. So you can always try that, see if they'll do that for you. Start putting together your to-do list. task members to do various things. Like if you need a certain display developed, you should have an idea of what displays you have available for your open house. If you have somebody that is a pilot, bringing in, those pilot resources, things that are going to be attracting, pilots, and be able to talk about that, do that. Find your ES person and have them bring their equipment in and be able to talk about that. Communications, aerospace, your cadet programs. If you do not have displays, start making them, right? Take some time and make some professional looking displays. And so you're ready when the open house comes and be able to do that. Other things that you're going to have to consider is, refreshments, what you're going to do about that, and, how you're going to get materials sent out, which will be coming up very soon. Your public affairs officer at this time needs to start sending out press releases. And you should be looking at sending out press releases to the news. You should be looking at, radio, television, put it in your newspaper. You probably may have to do this a couple times. Fortunately, you can use email for a lot of this. In some cases, you're going to have to do it through the U.S. Postal Service. So they need to be written. And once again, I just gave Colonel Ninnis, some of the press releases that we had and some of the letters of invitation, and start working on that.
By the way, Stan, those are all up on that downloadable resource list now. I put the letters up today.
Perfect. And also, along with this is you're going to need to start thinking about social media. So sending stuff out to Facebook, sending stuff out to Twitter, start building a campaign where you are putting announcements out on a regular basis, announcing your open house. It's not a one and done. You have to do this repeatedly. You have a 90-day window that you're working in, and maybe, 90 days out, you only want to do it once or twice, for the first 30 days. When you get into the 60 days out, you may want to start upping it to 2 times a week. But when you start getting into that 30-day window, you want to start putting that out basically once a day, and sometimes even multiple times as you get, the closer you get. Creating Facebook ads. This is another place where you can get the word out. You're going to have to pay a little money, but it's pretty nominal. Colonel Ninnis, you did something with Facebook ads and you targeted audiences for your open house. How did that go?
It actually went pretty well. A couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, I started just as a lark. I said, oh, I'll spend $30 on this and lay it out. And this last time around when we did it, I spent about $70, I think it was. And I forget the exact number. I don't have the Facebook page up right now, but I want to say we got about 3,500 impressions and about 800 clicks out of that. And we had, sitting in our open house that night, the last open house we did, we had over 50 people that weren't Civil Air Patrol members there.
Very nice. Very nice. So using Facebook ads, I think that would be stronger than perhaps Twitter ads at this time, for all kinds of different reasons, but I definitely recommend it. The next thing you want to do is you want to get a list of a lot of the dignitaries that you want to invite to your open house. Government officials, principals, school administrators, all the various agencies, maybe from EMS, put together a list. make sure that list is accurate, because after election, people come and people go. So you always have to kind of check this list and make sure that you are working with the most current stuff. The cool thing about the list is you can mail merge it to labels, you can mail merge it to letterhead, and do stuffing and things like that. But get that list created. Once you get that list done, well in advance, because everybody has a busy schedule, you want to start inviting those dignitaries to your open house. Make sure that you get them on the list. Their calendars fill up tremendously fast, but if you're doing it about the 90-day mark, somewhere around there, you stand a good chance of getting on their calendars. Print out your posters. So these were a couple posters that we put together, that we would distribute in the town. And what we did in Laramie is we would get the unit together on a Saturday morning, typically after 10 o'clock when the businesses opened, and we would saturate the town with posters. The cadets, the senior members were there to kind of chaperone, but basically the cadets in uniform would go from business to business asking if the business would put this poster in their window, right? Do not skimp on this. We would typically put anywhere from 100 to 150 posters out during this campaign. So it cost a little bit of money, and I know that can be a struggle. Once again, try to figure out how you can get it donated to you. But get those posters printed out. So now we're moving into the 10 to 30 days out. Things to do at that window. Put together a packet of information. And the packets that we had was a letter to the principal explaining what Civil Air Patrol was. We put in school announcements that you specifically told them to read these announcements starting 1 week prior to your event. And they talked about, the aerospace program, the ES program, the cadet program, flying, just a variety of things. So we had 5 of them, and we did it all the way up to the event. And listening to our cadets, they in fact did hear these on the announcements in the morning, which was, we were thrilled that they were doing that. We also put in cadet recruiting brochures. We put some of our open house posters, and we also put in some of the recruiting brochures for teachers for the Aerospace Education member program. And we put that in there with the letter explaining to the principal about the Aerospace Education member program. So you build this packet, get it off to every school. We did every single school, basically middle school and high school, but really focused on the middle school. We kind of realized when you get into the high school age, it's really a struggle to get someone in, unless they're tapping in and trying to leverage what they have in terms of getting in the military. Like I said, here is a couple of the shining cadets from Laramie making their poster runs as we were saturating the street. This took us about a good 2 to 3 hours to do. Laramie, we were working with probably a 5 by 7 or 8 block area in order to do this. And then we would run some posters out to the outskirts where the strip malls were. We put together new member packages, information for people that would show up at the open house, a packet of information talking about Civil Air Patrol, fact sheets, brochures, those kind of things. And it's really up to you what you want to put in there, but, kind of giving them a little bit of information about CAP that's applicable to, when they join, activities that they could get involved in, and show the diversity of activities that your unit's involved in. All right, moving down. Now we're getting into the last 10 days. This is where you start ramping things up. So a couple times before the open house, if your schools allow it, have the cadets wear a uniform to school. We did both BDUs and blues, right, to kind of show variety. Some people get kind of jazzed about the BDUs. Some folks are, a little excited about seeing all the bling that you can put on to the blue uniform. So,
Stan, just as an aside, I was always a big fan, and this is just me personally. I always told the cadets, blues only, but that was just me, where the way I've been brought up. So certainly you can tell them BDUs. Some schools get a little crazy and whacked out of shape about BDUs. So it's something to be cognizant of.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks. At the meeting prior to your event, sit down and review your schedule and assignments with the unit members. Yes, you are going to have a duty roster. One of the resources that I shared with Colonel Ninnis is a duty roster that we had, plus a schedule. You are going to schedule this from setup to tear down, minute by minute, kind of outlining what's going to happen, and you're going to review this with all your members, so they're on the same sheet of music. They know that they need to show up early. They know, who is going to be responsible for door greeting and escorting to the open house area. You have people that are going to be manning the different booths. You need to take time and put these things together so members know what they need to prepare for. Also, part of that briefing is kind of explain to your membership. You can have a picture. You can, kind of do a sand table type thing, but show folks how the displays are going to be set up. This will make it quicker to set up when they show up for the open house itself. Assign a door guard or a greeter. Make sure that you have somebody, that's professional and will give the best greeting possible. I have been to some events in Civil Air Patrol that the greeters, they could have been better, that they didn't know what was going on. They didn't show an interest. They were not enthusiastic. You have to get the right people to do these. These are important jobs. As far as you want to put your best foot forward when somebody shows up to your open house. Professional, professional, professional. This is absolutely essential in what you're doing. Everybody needs to be briefed, and it has to be kind of driven home that they need to put a professional appearance. So first thing that you're going to do, so for your open house itself, arrive early, right? You can't be running in last minute and look like you have no clue in what you're doing. So you need to arrive early to set up for your open house. Set up your displays, set up your seating. We typically set up seating for about 40 or more visitors. In case people set, depending on who would show up, we really, we hope for the best. And for most cases, that's what we got. Look at that fine Cadet Hewlett lad. Man, he grew up, he got tall. So when your visitors arrive, have somebody escort them to where the main function is, right? Bring them to their seats, show them, where the display area is. Based on what's on your schedule, kind of give them an idea of what's to be expected, over the course of the next couple hours. Take time to make sure that your members are engaging with the visitors. One of the things that I've watched in a lot of open houses is that CAP kind of congregates with CAP. What we want to do is we want to go and talk to the visitors that are there, tell them about the program. Everybody has a different perspective why they joined CAP, and share that with as many people as possible.
That's an important point, Stan, because I run into that same problem. Cadets tend to bunch up. They find some snacks and they all get in a little huddle, and the next thing you know, all you see is everybody's blue back. And I tell the cadet I have to go around and grab some cadet NCOs and tell them, hey, go break up those knots. And they do eventually. It takes a little bit, but they will do it. But I'm here to tell you, as sure as the sun comes up in the east, they will absolutely bunch up in groups.
Yep, and that's why, at the meeting prior, these are things that you're going to talk about. You're going to tell them, about being professional, not to get in groups. And when you have that setup period, you're going to remind them not to bunch up in groups and to go out and talk to everybody. Set up your displays. Make sure that you have displays for, all your different missions and, the different activities that your unit's involved in. Ideally, you want to get pictures of your members in action. If you are not taking advantage of social media and capturing your members in action now, I think you're making a huge mistake. Right? We have tools available to us that we've never had before, in the fact that your smartphone has a camera on it and you can be snapping pictures like crazy of all the cool things that we do across the span of a year or years. And we need to find the best photos and get them up there to talk about our program. So show that off.
Hey, Stan, there's a question we have.
Yes, sir.
Ed Loveridge has a question. Did you run open houses in conjunction with your great start date of Great Start?
That is an excellent question. That was our major plan, that we held open houses 3 times a year. And we basically ran the cadets through a Great Start program 3 times a year for those new cadets. Our goal was to get them their first stripe as soon as possible and get them fully integrated in the program. So that was part 2 of the recruiting and retention part 2 of the recruiting open house was then let's mentor these young cadets and get them fully integrated into the program and moving forward. So we had cadets, experienced cadets, and as we were building up, that's what they would do. And we would do this a couple times, and then pretty soon we can have the more experienced cadets working on something else while another group was mentoring for the Great Start program. But yes, that's part of your planning. Ideally, try to get them integrated and moving on. Same thing with senior members that, I rode herd on senior members to get them through their level 1 and get them into a specialty track and start training. So
it's an important thing it's really important to think about. Not only are you going to recruit these people, but you do need to have something for them to do after you do this great big huge recruiting push. You can't just say, okay, hey, yeah, come look at how great we are, now stand around for the next 6 weeks. No, have a plan. Whether you do something like Great Start, whether you have a cadet basic training, whether you're going to have in-person level 1 training, or like my squadron does, we use cohort recruiting. So we run a full 8-week basic training course starting the week after open house. So, it all varies and it depends on what works for your squadron. But the important thing is to engage that person that you bring in. Don't bring them in the door and then say, well, come on back, because you can then see what, no, you want them to see, you want them to be engaged in the program. So you've got to have something for them to do.
Absolutely. Try to set up a display with attractive posters, with the equipment that you want. Take time to build something nice and put it up there. If you can see in this example, we were using, the stuff that you can get at Staples, the trifold posters, and we tried to build something, that was relatively attractive that we can share. And we did this, for a lot of our different displays to be able to talk about our program. Once again, our equipment. So, some comm equipment. We had the ES equipment. We were just a regular squadron. I mean, we didn't have, we didn't invest thousands of dollars on a display you would see at a conference. I mean, we had what we had, but we also had people there to talk about those different aspects and why we had the different equipment and things like that. So
keep in mind too, a lot of squadrons get those STEM kits now, and the STEM kits, at least one of them is a simulator system. So you have pedals and the yoke for the SciTech pedals and yoke for a flight sim. We set up our squadron projector after we're done with our presentation for the evening. We move it over and point it to the wall in front of the flight simulator, and then that's a huge draw. There's like probably 25 potential cadets standing there going, I want my turn at this.
Absolutely. Yeah, STEM kits. Holy smokes, man, I wish I was a cadet now. When I was a cadet, we had a book. So the cool stuff we got going on now. If you've got some swag to hand out, try to get it. DDR, our experiences in DDR, that we could get all kinds of cool swag, and we were handing it out. These are, obviously the various brochures that we were getting from National at the time. And so, trying to have takeaways that people can leave with. Next is a presentation. Giving a presentation that talks about all the different missions and what we had going on. Either I donated a presentation that I put together. I think it's pretty good. You can certainly take it and tweak it, to kind of give that presentation. It's very visual, kind of in line with how this presentation goes. It talks about the 3 missions, but you should have something that's very visual that you can talk about the CAP. You can sit there and talk, but sometimes a picture captures what you want, everything about that. So that's why visuals are important with our program. As I look on the national site on some of the pictures that they're displaying, the Cadet Officer School, Hawk Mountain, the pararescue schools, the flight schools, the pilot orientation, the Air Force pilot orientation courses. We got some really cool stuff to talk about. And, even pictures of encampments, things like that. Let's talk about our programs and what we're doing, and support it with imagery. I also encourage that you have some of your sharp cadets, a couple of them, tell about CAP from their perspective. Where they're up there talking about why they're in CAP, what it means to them. That's huge. There's a reason why we bring cadets, up on the hill to talk to our elected representatives, right? There's passion in their eyes about the program, that they're doing cool stuff and they like to talk about it. So go ahead and get them out there. An open house is also a great time to, show off some promotions or give some awards out, where you have a lot of different people. That's not only great for them to see, how something is done in our program, but also it's great for the member who is getting promoted or awarded, when you have a nice crowd that's there to watch. There's something about that. So it's kind of a double win there. All right, so that was about getting members into the door and how we did it. You can't just at the last moment decide, oh, I'm going to have an open house next week and hope that it comes off successfully. It just will not happen. You need to have it on the schedule. You need to plan it. You need to get the word out multiple times if you are to be successful. And so now what? You got members that start showing up, they're paying their dues, and how do we go ahead and keep those members? I personally think that one of the most important thing to do is to have a plan. That members do not like to show up and there's nothing going on. So if they know that you are putting together a plan that has good, rich activities, they will show up and participate. So you have to establish goals. So part of those goals are looking at the needs of your members. Who needs to be trained? Set a plan to help them get trained and have them move forward in the program. These goals need to be SMART goals. In other words, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. You need to get them documented and help move your program forward. So part of that is sitting down with your AE folks. Pull out all the different reports in e-services, sit down, and look where your gaps are. Do we have all the members that we need to have get the Aerospace Education program for senior members, the Yeager Award? Do we have people advancing to get the Crossfield Award? How are cadets doing and moving through the program? Are we involved in the Aerospace Excellence program? Are we involved with STEM kids? Right? These are all these different goals that are out there. They show up on the commander's dashboard, various goals. Are we moving people through specialty tracks? I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff around aerospace that you can set goals for. So you need to get those on paper, documented, where the rest of the unit can see where your gaps are. And that's going to be one piece that's going to help put your schedule together. The same thing applies for the cadet program. What do you want to do in the cadet program? What is your goal? Are you trying to advance all cadets through 2 or 3 stripes in the next year? Is that a goal? Are you trying to, have a color guard team? Are you, there's all kinds of different pieces of the cadet program that you can be looking at. Are you going to have a great start program? What's that going to look like? How many cadets are you going to prepare to go to encampment? All kinds of things. Once again, tapping into those e-service reports, pulling those things out, and using those to set the goals for your unit. Work on filling the gaps. Yes, same thing. What do you want? Do you want a ground team? Do you want air crews? Do you want mission staff? How are folks advancing? Have they done their everybody done GES? Where are you at in this program? Look at, where you can do training and then focus that energy. Has everyone done ICUT, ground handling training? Once again, e-services tells you this. You can go there and print out all kinds of reports that let you know what the status of your unit is and use that for planning your goals.
Stan, we've had another question here.
Yes.
Kevin Tweedy is asking, is there a list of the steps each new adult member needs to do to progress?
Big question. So
I don't think
in the various regulations, 5017 outlines what is required to progress in the senior member professional development program. If they decide to go into emergency services, then there are certain steps that they have to take there, and they're kind of outlined in the 60 series. Same thing if they want to be a pilot, that's also in the 60 series. Once you start working on specialty tracks, there are study guides in the pamphlets starting in the 200 series that talk about that. But the kind of the unique thing about CAP is you have people all over the spectrum, right? So you have to sit down and have a plan, you can make a checklist, and there's plenty of checklists out there that if you do a search on new senior members advancing, you'll find all kinds of people that have put their checklist together. It's basically the level 1 orientation course, which is on e-services to help move forward. But from there, then you start looking for your gaps. When's the last time your folks advanced in a specialty track? There's reports that will tell you that. And so therefore you have all these other goals like, public affairs officers and professional development, and your operations officers and logistics and communications. What are their training needs? Do you want to cross-train people? Do you have assistants? There's ways to look at this, but once again, it's a matter of sitting down with the reports, and also just asking your members what would they like to do, what would keep them motivated to doing that. So once you have kind of looked through it, found out where your gaps, and started setting goals, you need to build a plan to meet those goals. I have just finished reading a wonderful book that I want to recommend to you. It's called the 12-week year, and it talks about looking at planning and executing within 3-month blocks, as opposed to you could have general overall goals, what you want to do for the whole year, but when it comes down to executing it and trying to achieve those goals, work in 3-month blocks to make that happen, and you will have much more success. So that book is called the 12-week year. So this is a plan that we basically built for our squadron. It was in a Google spreadsheet, and we made this available so everybody could look at it. And starting from left to right, we started off with the months, and then we looked at a quarterly focus. So for January, February, and March, we focused on color guard, and that's what we were doing as a unit. So any of the classes that we were holding were in line with looking at color guard. And then in April, May, June, we looked at ground team member 3, A-cut, B-cut, mission radio officer, and mission staff assistant. And we kind of focused on that, for all our training. So we got ready for the SAREC schedules in Wyoming. In the next column, or the next 2 columns, is we outlined what the squadron events. So in 5216, that they talked about that units had to have a weekly activity or a monthly activity that was outside the normal meeting nights, something that was more active. So we made sure that we got something going. So we would look at what the wing had on its calendar already, and we filled in the blocks, and then we also added our activity. So you can see that we had a number of orientation flights scheduled, and that we tried to make sure that we got orientation flights on a regular basis, get them on our schedule. Some things, like the open house, we had, open house in May scheduled, and further down we had a couple more scheduled. And then, but also the wing events like the NCO Academy and IC and mission staff training, color guard competition, so we had those plugged in, and those identified when we were doing that. Then the next piece is we ran on a rotating schedule. Had I been smarter, we would have used the acronym LEAP: Leadership, Emergency Services, Aerospace, and Physical Fitness, so people could remember it better. But I don't know. We went entirely different directions. So we had leadership as our first week, aerospace, then emergency services, and then character development and physical fitness on the other day. And then any fifth meeting night was we showed a movie or did some other activity or fill the gap that we had, that we needed to do, and talked about what uniforms and things like this. But this was the beginning of our planning for our, for the schedule that we had. And then we also kicked this out in another view that was, some people thought it was easier to read, but we managed to, or it was important for us to let the members know what was on the schedule. And so they can pin this up. And this was basically kind of carved in stone that, these events were there and that's what we were going to support. And, we tried to keep it very active. We had a lot of stuff going on.
Hey,
So
Stan,
now, yes, sir.
I just want to let you know we do have a couple of questions, but they're not specifically related to the matter at hand, so we might want to hold those to the end. But it is 8:47, by the way.
Thanks.
Keep me on track.
Well, thank you. All right. So now it comes down to executing your plan, right? That try to stick to your plan as tightly as possible, but if it's not working out, have that flexibility where you can go to plan B, where you can make tweaks to your plan. Maybe the folks that were interested no longer are interested. No sense beating them down. Make adjustments to your plan. But you should, kind of look at this every 12 weeks to see where you're going. As you're going through, keep reviewing your plan, revising. If you're meeting your goals, if everyone suddenly has the Jaeger Award, there is no sense, continuing to kind of harp on the Jaeger anymore. So make a change, start harping on the Crossfield Award, make a difference. And also really important, to keeping members in your organization is recognize them, throughout the process. Thank them for what they do. And we are very stingy with awards. We have all these tools at our disposal, and we don't like to use them for some reason. But, take care of your folks. All right. So earlier I mentioned that the National was putting together some resources. You can find this at bit.ly/National RR materials. Understand that it is case sensitive, so capital N for national, capital RR for recruiting and retention, and capital M for materials. Put that in, and that should take you to this page that has a good start on a lot of resources. If you wish to donate to this, send your materials to Colonel Ninnis. He will be happy to put them up there. We're trying to build a nice set that people can take and make their own.
The more the merrier. The more the merrier.
So here's what we have so far. This was the first of what we hope to be a ongoing series. Our next webinar will be the 22nd of February at 2100 hours Eastern Time. And in that presentation, we are going to address what are some major reasons that people are leaving CAP and some thoughts about what we can do different to keep them. So that is what we're going to go. And so now we're going to handle questions.
Okay, Stan, I got a question here from Kenneth Hodge. The question is, how do we keep high school students involved with CAP when they have so many other interests pulling at them? And I think I can answer that question, actually.
Go for it.
You know, one of the things I keep telling people is if you want Civil Air Patrol to be a program that people are going to be invested in and going to be involved in, you really have to make it interesting. I told my people one night, hey, look, if you want to make people come here on Thursday nights, my squadron meeting is on Thursday nights, you better make Civil Air Patrol more interesting than the Big Bang Theory. You better make it more interesting than whatever other activity there is. Because if they've got a choice between hanging out and playing Xbox on a Thursday night or coming to the squadron meeting, which one are they going to take? We want them to take coming to the squadron meeting, not hanging out with the Xbox. Stan, did you put me live? Because if you put me live and I'm like, my face is, no, I'm kidding.
No, you're live.
Okay.
So I'd like to add to that. We just had a meeting recently with the Northeast Region recruiting and retention officers. And one of the comments that came out was that cadets don't like to go to the meeting and sit and read their, aerospace and leadership books. Well, no kidding. They do that in school, right? The reason that members come to CAP is they want to do other type of activities. And if it is too much like school, it's going to be a huge turnoff, and they're going to go ahead and find different programs. So this is about sitting down, figure out where your gaps, and do this planning. We did this planning session with all the members of our squadron. We dedicated one of the last meetings in December, just before our big Christmas party, to sit down and have a planning meeting. And I did all the research by getting all the reports ahead of time and kind of explain what the gaps were. But then we let the membership decide what our goals were going to be. And from there, that went out to flesh out our planning schedule. Thank you, Kenneth Hodge, for that question. So let me, Darren's back. All right.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. My apologies. I didn't realize I was live. My landlady showed up. Anyway, Tim Ledford wanted to know if it was okay for the squadrons, wings, regions to save this into their online recruiting toolkit. Probably the easiest way to do that, though, would be really to save or just distribute the link, because this is going to be available on YouTube. There's not really
on Google, right?
Google, right? Sorry. Well, YouTube, Google, YouTube. They're both the same.
Yeah, the benefit. I mean, because this is on Google, and that resource. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can copy that resource and plug it in for you so you can get to it right easy. Because that's going to be available to you right there, anytime we make an update, you're going to have the latest and greatest. So you're going to want that. So let me grab that link and pop it into resources here.
We also had a question, Stan, on Twitter that came through. That was I'm amazed. I'm a Twitter neophyte, so I'll admit to not being so hot with this. But we had a question. Did you run open house with more than one squadron or flight, say senior members with aircraft and a cadet composite unit? And
okay, yeah, for me, we, some units I know have this flexibility. However, for me, our squadron was a composite squadron. All the cadets were there, and so we just kind of ran it all together. That our sole pilot was there talking about that, and there was a few of us from mission staff and some ground team, and the rest of our membership talking about aerospace. So everybody had that going. So
excellent. Yeah, I said that you could definitely do that if your circumstances were right. Say you met at an airport and there was a senior squadron nearby. No idea is a stupid one if it works. So, okay, Tim asked, what was the time again on the next web event? That's going to be the 22nd of February at 2000 hours. Or did we say 2000 or 2100, Stan?
2000.
Good. 2000. Okay. We may run some subsequent events a little later in the evening if we can to help our friends on the West Coast. But just like tonight's event, it'll be available. It will be streaming, and if you don't have the ability to watch it as it's occurring live, you can watch it afterwards.
Absolute. Okay, and then from Ed Lovrich, he indicated that the new CAP Reg 152 on social media is available. So yes, definitely take a look at that and put it to good use. But definitely get the word out. Leverage social media, powerful tool, and mostly free. So you can put the word out far and wide. Tell the story about your members. So anything else on Twitter, Fall?
No, actually, it was going pretty smooth. Only one question on Twitter, Fall, but that was still worked out pretty well.
Nice.
We're at 8:57, Stan. We're 3 minutes early.
Rock on. Okay. Hey, I would like to thank everybody who took time in their evening to come hang out with us. If you enjoyed this, we'd love to hear from you, right? What can we do better? We're here to share information. We have different experiences. We want to share them with you, help your units get better. That's my goal in this. And a couple other, we have some resources out there. I have a newsletter that you can sign up at, and I will put it in on the page that you're watching. And if you want to sign up to that, you're more than welcome. And with that, I wish you a wonderful evening and good luck doing CAP recruiting and retention. Colonel Nennis, any final words?
I really appreciate everybody who participated this evening. This is our first time doing this, and it's an interesting opportunity to really spread the word nationally from the comfort of your own home, sort of. So, we're going to do more of these and pass along more information. People really want to have tools in their hands, and we're trying to put that in your hands. So look forward to helping everybody out.
Okay, very cool.